Scarcity creates value because human nature is wired to assign worth based on rarity. When something is available everywhere, when it is easily obtained, it loses its luster. But the moment it becomes limited, the human mind elevates it, giving it a weight that abundance can never match. This principle governs not only economics, but also psychology, relationships, and the way we chase after meaning in life. It is why a diamond is treasured not simply for its shine, but because it is rare. It is why gold carries prestige not just for its color, but for its scarcity. And it is why human behavior often bends toward what is least available rather than what is most abundant. The scarcity effect is rooted in our deepest instincts. Thousands of years ago, survival depended on limited resources. Food was not always guaranteed, safety was not always certain, and opportunities were fleeting. The human brain evolved to prioritize what was scarce because missing out on it could mean missing out on survival. That same wiring remains in us today, even though the world has changed. When something appears rare, our minds light up with urgency. We want it, we feel we must have it because scarcity signals importance. This is why luxury brands deliberately limit their supply. A handbag or watch could be manufactured endlessly, but exclusivity drives desire. By keeping access limited, companies make their products more desirable. People are willing to wait in line, spend large sums, or chase after something simply because it isn't freely available. The actual object may not change lives, but the scarcity attached to it transforms perception. Abundance never creates that reaction, limitation does. The same principle plays out in human interactions. When someone makes themselves too available, when they are always present and easily reached, their value is subconsciously diminished. There is no urgency to appreciate them, no sense of rarity in their presence. But when access is limited, when time with them feels rare, every moment becomes charged with meaning. Scarcity transforms ordinary gestures into powerful ones because the human mind does not take them for granted. What is abundant is often ignored, but what is scarce is always pursued. Psychologists call this the scarcity principle, and it explains much of human decision-making. Limited time offers, exclusive invitations, sold-out signs, these all trigger the same instinct. It is not necessarily the object itself that is desired most, but the fact that not everyone can have it. Scarcity signals privilege. Scarcity whispers that something is valuable because not everyone has access to it. This psychological bias pushes people to act, to chase, to desire more fiercely than they otherwise would. It is important to notice that scarcity does not just create material value, it creates emotional and social value too. Words said less often carry more weight. A compliment given rarely strikes deeper than one repeated daily. Silence can sometimes echo louder than constant noise. Presence, when not overextended, becomes more powerful. This is the paradox of scarcity. But giving less, the value becomes more. The lesson hidden in this principle is one of discipline. It is easy to flood the world with abundance, to give endlessly, to be constantly available. But restraint creates space for appreciation. By limiting what is given, by guarding access, by offering presence selectively, a person or thing becomes magnified in importance. Scarcity does not diminish value, it multiplies it. What is abundant may be comfortable, but what is rare is unforgettable. Attention is one of the most powerful forces a human being can give, yet it is also one of the most fragile. Wherever attention goes, energy follows, and whatever receives that energy grows in significance. This is why attention functions as a kind of currency. Just like money, when it is overspent and distributed without thought, it loses its value. But when it is rationed carefully, when it is given sparingly and with intention, it gains tremendous weight. People measure importance by where attention is directed, and they sense instantly whether it is valuable or careless. From childhood onward, humans are shaped by attention. A child who receives focused, undivided attention feels seen and valued, while one who is constantly overlooked grows up hungry for acknowledgement. As adults, the same principle applies. When someone listens intently, when they look up from distractions and truly engage, the effect is profound. The moment of attention carries power, not because it is loud or dramatic, because it is rare in a world full of divided focus. Scarcity magnifies the value of attention. This is why what is given too freely diminishes in impact. If someone is constantly available, always pouring out attention without boundaries, that attention becomes ordinary. It is taken for granted because it does not feel exclusive. People do not treasure what flows endlessly, they treasure what feels selective. Just as a rare gem commands more respect than a common stone, attention that's rationed carefully feels heavier, more significant, and more memorable. In modern life, the value of attention is constantly under attack. Social media, endless notifications, and non-stop demands fragment focus into 1,000 pieces. Everyone is competing for a slice of attention, and most people give it away without realizing its worth. But those who learn to protect their attention, to direct it consciously and sparingly, wield influence far greater than those who scatter it without thought. Attention is not infinite, it is finite and therefore precious. Consider relationships. Words of affirmation, gestures of kindness, and simple moments of presence can mean everything when they are not constantly repeated. If someone receives endless validation, it eventually becomes background noise. But when those words are offered deliberately after silence or absence, they land with power. The timing and restraint make the attention meaningful. Less becomes more because attention has been treated like currency, spent carefully, not wasted. The same truth applies in leadership. A leader who gives attention indiscriminately loses authority, but a leader who observes quietly, chooses moments wisely, and offers acknowledgement with precision builds influence. When attention comes sparingly from someone respected, it motivates and inspires at a deeper level. Attention given freely to all carries less impact than attention reserved for the moments that truly matter. Even personal growth hinges on this principle. Where attention is invested determines what thrives. If attention is poured into distractions, gossip, or negativity, those things expand. If it is directed toward discipline, learning, or meaningful pursuits, those areas flourish. Attention is the currency that decides what grows and what withers, what strengthens and what weakens. Managing it carefully is the difference between chaos and progress. What makes attention so powerful is not just the act of giving it, but the act of withholding it. To withdraw attention is to deny growth. To offer it selectively is to bestow value. Every human instinct is shaped by this unspoken economy. The rarest thing someone can give is not money, not gifts, not even time. It is undivided, intentional attention. It is the currency that cannot be faked, cannot be replaced, and cannot be ignored. Mystery has always carried a magnetic pull because the human mind is not satisfied with what it already knows. It is driven by curiosity toward what remains hidden. People chase after the unknown because mystery awakens imagination, and imagination is often stronger than reality. When something or someone is fully exposed, laid bare without restraint, the chase ends because there is nothing left to uncover. But when layers remain, when questions linger, attraction deepens. Mystery fuels interest because it gives space for wonder, interpretation, and anticipation, and these are far more powerful than simple exposure. The psychology behind this is rooted in curiosity. Humans are problem solvers by nature, designed to close gaps in understanding. When there is a piece of missing information, the mind obsesses over it, searching for completion. Mystery leaves gaps deliberately, and those gaps draw people in. What is not explained becomes fascinating. What is withheld becomes desirable. Full exposure satisfies the mind too quickly, while mystery keeps it engaged, always wanting to know more, always reaching beyond what is already revealed. This principle is visible in stories, art, and culture. A novel that reveals everything in the first chapter leaves nothing to be discovered, but one that hints, teases, and withholds pulls the reader deeper into its world. A painting that leaves interpretation open holds attention longer than one that explains itself completely. The same applies to people. Those who reveal themselves too easily become predictable, while those who maintain a sense of mystery remain intriguing. Attraction is not about knowing everything, it is about wanting to know more. In relationships, mystery creates depth. Exposure without restraint may bring comfort, but it does not spark passion. When every detail is revealed instantly, the sense of discovery disappears. Mystery does not mean deception, it means allowing space for gradual revelation. Each new layer discovered feels earned, and that process of earning strengthens the bond. The unknown excites because it suggests there is more to come, and that promise keeps interest alive. Mystery also communicates value. If everything is easily available, it signals that there is nothing special to protect. But when certain parts are hidden, guarded, or revealed slowly, it creates the impression of depth and importance. People assume that what is not easily seen must be more significant. This is why restraint often carries more weight than excess. Exposure floods the senses but fades quickly, while mystery leaves traces that linger in the mind long after. Even in everyday life, the principle holds true. A conversation where someone listens more than they speak leaves the other person wondering what thoughts lie beneath the silence. A quiet confidence without constant explanation suggests strength that others want to uncover. The less predictable a person is, the more others lean in to figure them out. Predictability kills interest, but mystery sustains it. Mystery is powerful because it allows others to participate in the experience. Instead of being handed the full picture, they create part of it themselves through imagination. That participation makes the attraction personal and lasting. Exposure delivers facts, but mystery delivers stories. Facts are consumed quickly, but stories live on in the mind, reshaped and retold endlessly. The paradox is that in a world obsessed with exposure, constant sharing, endless broadcasting, oversaturation of information, mystery becomes even more valuable. When everything is visible, the unseen becomes rare. When everyone speaks loudly, silence becomes intriguing. When most people rush to reveal themselves, the one who withholds, who chooses subtlety over display, captures the deepest attention. Mystery is not the absence of truth. It is the art of unfolding it slowly, so that curiosity never dies and attraction never fades. Restraint is one of the purest forms of strength because it demonstrates mastery not over others, but over oneself. While indulgence is easy and often celebrated in the moment, it is restraint that endures as a sign of discipline, control, and deeper power. Anyone can give into impulse, but it takes a greater force to hold back, to remain composed, and to choose action with intention rather than reaction out of weakness. Self-control is not about denying desire, it is about governing it in a way that preserves dignity and amplifies respect. The reason restraint communicates strength is because it shows a person is not ruled by their urges. Emotions, temptations, and opportunities constantly push for immediate gratification. To indulge is natural, But to resist demonstrates that one is not a slave to momentary impulses. That resistance signals inner authority, and authority is magnetic. It makes others sense that there is depth, stability, and reliability in someone who can regulate themselves instead of being swept away by fleeting desires. Restraint also creates weight behind actions. When every thought is spoken, words lose meaning. When every impulse is indulged, gestures lose impact. But when words are chosen carefully, when actions are measured, and when indulgence is reserved for the right moment, each one becomes powerful. A smile from someone who rarely gives it carries more meaning than constant approval. A decision made after silence feels more deliberate than one rushed in passion. The act of holding back multiplies the impact of what is eventually released. This principle is visible throughout history and leadership. The most respected figures were often those who exercised restraint rather than excess. Leaders who kept their emotions in check inspired confidence because people trusted their steadiness. Commanders who held back armies until the perfect moment of strike demonstrated wisdom rather than recklessness. Even in philosophy and spiritual traditions, restraint is praised as a form of higher mastery, a victory not over the outside world but over the inner one. Restraint also builds longevity. Indulgence burns fast, it is intense, but it quickly fades. A life of constant excess leads to exhaustion, emptiness, and eventual collapse. Restraint, on the other hand, preserves energy, cultivates focus, and allows value to accumulate over time. The person who eats with discipline, who speaks with measure, who spends time selectively, builds a foundation that is not easily shaken. Restraint ensures endurance, while indulgence often brings downfall. In human connection, restraint adds to attraction. The person who does not reveal everything, who does not rush to flood others with attention or emotion, creates an air of strength. Their presence feels intentional, not desperate. Their silence feels thoughtful, not empty. Their distance feels like a choice, not neglect. This communicates that they are in control of themselves, that they decide when and how to give, and that decision is what creates respect and desire. Indulgence may flatter briefly, but restraint earns admiration that lasts. Restraint also sharpens focus, by holding back from scattering energy across every impulse. A person can channel it into what truly matters. It filters out distraction and forces intentionality. To restrain oneself from speaking means listening better. To restrain oneself from excess means preserving resources for greater use. To restrain oneself from reacting means responding with clarity and purpose. This makes restraint not just a moral virtue, but a practical tool for effectiveness in every part of life. What makes restraint so powerful is that it is invisible strength. Indulgence is loud, it announces itself, but restraint works quietly, subtly shaping perception. Those who master restraint appear unshaken, untouchable, and calm even in chaos. That calmness radiates power because it shows that nothing external can easily control them. In a world where indulgence is common and self-control is rare, restraint stands out as the ultimate proof of inner strength. Life is understood not in isolation but in contrast. Joy is recognized because sorrow exists, warmth is appreciated because cold has been felt, and silence is valued because noise is constant. This principle extends into human behavior, shaping the way people perceive value and meaning. The law of contrast teaches that what is withheld amplifies the worth of what is eventually given. Without contrast, everything blends into sameness, but with contrast, even the smallest gesture becomes magnified in significance. When something is constantly available, it becomes invisible. A person who gives endlessly without pause or measure unknowingly drains their actions of power. Gratitude fades because the gift has no scarcity and no contrast against absence. But when generosity, attention, or affection is withheld and then revealed selectively, the contrast makes it feel weighty. A kind word means more after silence. A rare appearance leaves a greater mark than constant presence. The offering does not change in substance, but its timing and rarity transform it into something extraordinary. The human brain is designed to notice differences, not constants. This is why stars shine more brightly against the night sky than they would in daylight. It is why a sip of water feels miraculous when someone is thirsty, but goes unnoticed when someone is full. Contrast awakens awareness. It sharpens perception, and in doing so, it increases appreciation. What is withheld creates a void, and when that void is filled, the mind latches onto the difference, amplifying its meaning. In relationships, the law of contrast becomes especially clear. Endless indulgence dulls the senses, while restraint makes moments valuable. If affection is poured without measure, it risks becoming background noise. But if it is offered with thought, after intervals of restraint, it becomes powerful. One compliment lands more deeply when it is rare. One act of kindness feels unforgettable when it comes after distance. It is not the act itself that changes, but the contrast between absence and presence that heightens its impact. Leadership also thrives on contrast. A leader who speaks constantly may lose authority, but one who withholds words until the right moment makes their voice echo louder. Their silence sharpens attention, and their decision to finally speak makes the message resonate. Contrast creates gravity because people sense the weight of what is not always available. What is offered sparingly carries an aura of importance, and importance commands respect. Even in personal discipline, contrast plays its role. To enjoy leisure fully, one must have worked hard. To savor rest, one must have experienced effort. Without contrast, pleasure is dull. With it, even simple moments glow. People who live in constant indulgence often lose appreciation, while those who practice cycles of restraint and reward find deeper satisfaction in the smallest joys. Contrast transforms ordinary experiences into treasures by sharpening awareness of their value. The law of contrast also shows that withholding is not about manipulation but about rhythm. Just as music is defined not only by notes but also by pauses, life gains meaning not only from action but from silence, not only from giving but from holding back. The pauses make the sound richer, and the absence makes the presence more alive. It is the space between gestures that gives them depth, the restraint that gives them gravity, the contrast that turns the ordinary into the unforgettable. At its core, the law of contrast reveals that value is not created by abundance but by perspective. When everything is given all at once, appreciation fades. But when something is offered after it has been withheld, it strikes with force. What is scarce becomes precious, and what is rare becomes unforgettable. Contrast teaches that meaning is born not just in what is given, but in what is withheld until the right moment arrives. Human beings are wired to rise toward difficulty. From survival in ancient times to modern ambitions, the instinct to overcome challenge is deeply ingrained in human nature. Easy victories satisfy briefly, but they do not linger. It is the uphill climb, the pursuit that demands patience and persistence, that imprints itself on memory and emotions. This is why human nature craves challenge, and why the harder it is to win someone over, the stronger and deeper the emotional attachment becomes. What comes effortlessly is often undervalued. When something or someone is easily available, the human mind begins to assume it holds little worth. But when access is difficult, when patience is tested, when effort is required, the brain begins to assign greater importance to the pursuit. This is not simply psychological curiosity, it is rooted in survival instincts. For centuries, scarce resources demanded struggle, and that struggle wired human beings to attach greater meaning to what took effort. Effort signals value, and value creates attachment. The law of effort is clear in daily life. A meal tastes better after hunger. Victory feels sweeter after defeat, and love feels stronger when it has been earned rather than handed over freely. The more resistance encountered in a pursuit, the more satisfying the reward becomes. That resistance fuels emotional investment. Each obstacle strengthens the bond with the prize because the mind begins to see it not just as an object of desire, but as something worth fighting for. In human connection, this principle unfolds with even greater force. When winning someone over requires patience, when affection is not granted immediately, when understanding must be built slowly, the attachment grows deeper. The pursuit becomes part of the bond. The mind begins to equate difficulty with worthiness, telling itself, if this is not easy, then it must be valuable. This perception creates emotional depth because the struggle itself becomes a story, a memory, and a source of pride. Challenge also ignites curiosity. The human mind is restless when it cannot fully solve a puzzle. A person who reveals themselves too quickly removes all curiosity, but one who allows discovery slowly creates endless intrigue. Each new layer revealed feels like a victory, and victories bind people emotionally. It is not the immediate reward that creates lasting attachment, but the process of overcoming obstacles to reach it. Even outside of relationships, challenge defines satisfaction. Athletes dedicate years to training because victory without effort would feel hollow. Artists labor over their work because struggle makes the creation meaningful. Entrepreneurs endure setbacks because success without resistance would lack fulfillment. The same pattern repeats. Human beings crave challenge because difficulty makes the reward real. At the heart of this principle is investment. The more someone invests time, effort, and energy into something, the more they value it. If something requires nothing, it risks being discarded without thought. But if it requires late nights, sacrifices, or countless attempts, it embeds itself in identity. It becomes part of the person, and letting go becomes unthinkable. This is why the challenge of winning someone over makes attachment stronger. The effort itself transforms desire into loyalty. Challenge also tests authenticity. If something or someone cannot be won easily, only the truly committed will persist. This filter weeds out the half-hearted and strengthens the resolve of those who remain. The struggle becomes proof of sincerity, and sincerity deepens attachment. The harder the challenge, the more it validates the pursuit, and the stronger the emotional bond becomes when it is finally achieved. Human nature does not long for what is cheap or instant. It longs for what feels earned. The chase, the obstacles, the uncertainty, all of these feed the fire of attachment. Easy gains are forgotten, but challenges shape the heart and mark the soul. The harder it is to win someone over, the more enduring the attachment, because the human spirit is built to treasure what it had to fight for.